And we are underway. So everything from this point on is recorded. And I hope that is okay for everybody. First thing I'm going to ask everybody to do, as you've figured out now, I prefer to keep everybody sort of on mute as much as possible. So you can come off mute if you have more detailed questions or thorough questions or whatever, but for the most part, you should be able to manage everything on the chat box. So first thing I'll ask is, a bunch of you have done it already, but if you could just send me a quick message and let me know if let me know your chat box is working. That's just like Alroy just did. Of course, Alroy's done this before. Just give me a quick good morning or exactly like that. Perfect, thanks Tammy. Yeah, thanks Daryl. Good stuff, Scott. Oh, that's it, exactly. All right, so hopefully everybody has that underway. I think we're all good to go. That's how most questions can be addressed. It's typically the kinds of questions people have are relatively short. Yeah, but Tim, you got so much information behind your name, it's okay. Typically the kind of questions people have lend themselves very well to the chat box. I keep everybody on mute, everybody but me, although I'm sure some of you wish I was on mute more. Everybody on mute all through the day or all through the call, and that lets us sort of manage the background noise. I'm sure some of you heard it as people were logging in this morning. When somebody's off mute for even 30 seconds, it creates a lot of background noise. It can be very disruptive. So that being said, if you have a more involved question, you can absolutely come off mute. Most of you can anyways, and ask me the question. No problems there. So if there is a more thorough question, don't be shy about asking the question. And as you have questions through the day, please do ask me those questions. I really prefer to have questions in the flow of the course rather than to have questions. Now you're off mute, Scott. M is off mute right now, so you can should be able to mute yourself again, Scott.
Hey, Jason, can I just ask a question? I don't have this chat box here.
No chat box. You're on the window, though, right?
Yeah, so I can see your slide deck.
Yeah, so if you're missing the chat box, just to the top right, sort of, there's just sort of hold your cursor up over the top middle of the screen. And you should get a little black bar that pulls down. And over to the right, there's the more option. It should be flashing orange right now, and you should be able to chat in there.
No, I don't have that, but I don't want to hold this up, so we'll.
You need it, Scott. You need it. It's okay.
Jason, it may be at the bottom of his screen, like mine is.
Yeah, it may be, Scott. So try the bottom. There may be a set of options down there.
No.
Here, try it now, Scott. And now you may have chat more obvious at the bottom middle, sort of your screen.
No.
I'm not sure. Okay, after the meeting, I can take control of your computer and I can have a look at what's going on there. You're not using a Mac, are you?
Nope.
Somewhere.
Invite participants, mute, leave meeting, and then at the top I get the participant ID, the meeting ID, and the corporate phone.
You may have a little window open. Just minimize the window that's open and have a look if you have another window open somewhere that has the chat already in it. It might be a little window unto itself. It's going to be a confusing day for you otherwise. If you have to, Scott, give Omar a call. Omar, can you just send Scott your number real quick?
Okay, sorry about this. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. That's what we're here for. Okay. All right, so I'd like to start then by, oh, and Sean M, now you're off mute. All right, I'm gonna mute you. Sean, unless you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Good stuff, okay. Yeah, I will keep everybody on mute for the most part. Okay, and thanks, Omar. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to the Capstone course, and thank everybody very much for joining us this morning. It's a significant commitment of both time and money. I understand that, and we want to make the most of it. So I have my agenda for the day. We're going to look at our case studies. Sorry. We're going to look at the course outline and what I intend to accomplish, and hopefully what you intend to accomplish. I'll talk briefly about the finished product and how that will look. I'll show you some resources you have available. We'll talk a little bit about the use of financial planning software. We'll talk about submissions and feedback, and we'll talk about the non-case study portions. And then the last thing, the thing that I always end with, is the homework. So if there's anything else anybody wants to cover, please do let me know. And again, yeah, great. Everybody was on good and early this morning. That really does help. Let's just get started on time and stay on schedule, respect of everybody's time that way. Okay. And as I said, if you have questions as we're going through, please do ask me those questions. If there are a bunch of questions that come up at the end that's not helpful for anybody, okay, now if I haven't covered a topic and it comes up at the end, I understand that, but it is not good for anybody when there's a bunch of questions at the end. So as we're going, if you have questions, please do bring those up. I think I've been clear on that point. All right. Okay, so first off, the case studies. So you'll need to have purchased the case study from FPSC. This is an obligation. Even if you and somebody else you know are going through the course, the FPSC is very clear on this, that every single person going through the course has to purchase the case study. So you should have bought the Philanthropic Retiree, Planning Her Future, I believe it's called. But anyways, the Catherine Parker Philanthropic Retiree case study. That's the only thing you'll need to buy from FPSC. There are 2 or 3 other cases you can buy for them. I can't remember if they made their 4th one available yet or not, but there are 2 or 3 other cases. That's the only one you need to buy. And if you don't have it yet, that's not a huge concern, but after the call, if you want to log into your profile with FPSC and buy that case study, that would be awesome. If you are here on an approved prior credentials policy, then you may not have a profile with FPSC yet. You'll need to set up a profile with FPSC, and then you'll be able to order the case study, okay? So for those that need to go set up that profile, again, that is fpsc.ca. You go there, and you'll register with them, set up a profile, and order your case study. And I think it's $40. Can't remember. All right. Oh, I should ask before I get too far. Sorry. $50. Thanks, Tammy. All right. Inflation, I guess. So Penny is on the call. Penny's my mother, for those that don't know. Do you have any messages for everybody? Mom, do you have anything you want to throw out there? There she is.
Yes, I do. Good morning. Sorry, just couldn't get my unmute button muted or whatever. So as you're working through the course, there's going to be things happening in your life that are going to get in the way. Please just keep in contact with Jason or myself or Kelly, preferably myself or Kelly. You will also hear from us time to time. Maybe bugging is not the right word, but seeing where you are in the progress and seeing how things are going for you. It's easy to fall behind in this course, so get to work right away. That's it. Good luck, everybody.
Okay, thanks. Yes, and stay on top of it. All right. Okay. That's it, Tammy, right? Okay. So the goal of this course, well, the way we're going to work towards the accomplishment of this goal is via the completion of a comprehensive financial plan, okay? And we're all going to work together towards the completion of those financial plans. So my goals here, and I hope you have similar goals, first and foremost, this is a course of instruction, and we're working towards a fuller understanding of the financial planning process, okay? Second is to prepare you for your CFP exam. And finally, to give the maximum amount of guidance as we work towards the completion of the course, okay? This is the sort of guidance-heavy capstone course. I hope everybody's aware of that. If you would prefer a course where somebody just leaves you alone and you submit a finished product at the end of some months of working on your own, this is not the right course for you, and we should chat before we get too far into it, okay? This is the course where you will have regular instruction / harassment to get you towards completion of that course, okay? All right. So how are you going to get through the course? Well, we're going to stay on schedule. So there is a set of timelines attached to the course, and you'll match up those timelines. You'll stay on track with those timelines. You just keep doing the work, keep progressing towards completion, okay? Something that people do lose sight of, this note is here for a reason. I will remind people of this periodically through the course, is that you will read the case study regularly. You will not lose sight of the case study, okay? Make regular use of the competency profile. And I'll talk more about the competency profile in a few minutes. And keep the plan coherent and flowing. That is, you have to actually be reading your own plan to ensure that it continues to make sense, to make sure that A, then B, then C continues to be true. I don't want to see A, then B, then Y, or whatever the case is, okay? Should be a nice logical flow to the plan, and the biggest way to accomplish that is by you actually giving your plan an occasional read to say, is this still making sense? Am I still sort of on pace? Okay, so the webinars themselves, they run about 2 hours. Today's webinar will just go about an hour and 15 minutes, thereabouts, depending on questions. The second webinar, so the way that they're working is they always back up against each other. The first one starts at Alberta time, 7 a.m., but depending where you are, anywhere from 3 hours earlier to, 3 hours later to an hour earlier. And the second one starts 2 hours, 15 minutes after that. So I can never run the class longer than 2 hours, or sometimes 2 hours, 5 minutes if we're really gonna push it. Okay, and I do try to keep it to that 2 hour length, and everything is recorded. So if for some reason you have something else going on and you can't get to the class, or there's a chunk that you say, I wish I could watch that again to refresh myself, it does, all right, if you're gonna come to the second session, I prefer to know in advance, just so that we can manage things. And actually, that's the kind of thing, just send that to either Kelly or Omar, okay? And generally, actually, Omar is probably better for that kind of thing. It lets us do the CE credits properly. It lets us track numbers at each session properly. That's preferred. Otherwise, it'll mess up your CE credits. Okay. So speaking of the recordings, let's pop over and I'll show you how to grab those. So we're going to do a quick tour here. And I'm going to start right out from scratch here. All right, so this is the study site. Some of you have been here before. Some of you are quite familiar with it. For some of you, you've never logged in here. This is where you will log in to do, or to see most of your coursework, the recordings, that kind of thing. So you'll log in here. Your username is going to be the same as your email address, whatever email address you provided us, and it's the same no matter where you're logging in from. If you're logging in from home and you gave us your work email address, you still log in with your work email address. Don't create a second account at home or whatever the case is. And your password, if you've never changed it, is happy 2010 $, just like so. So you'll log in. And you should see a bunch of courses lined up here. The one that you are particularly concerned with for this purpose is Capstone Winter 2018. You'll log in, click on Capstone Winter 2018, and you'll see some resources here. I'll go over these in a few minutes. For now, what I want to show you is where the class recordings and files will show up. So you'll see class recordings and files, day 1 files. This is actually the blank PowerPoints from today. I always do this. The blank PowerPoints are uploaded in advance, so you could actually, if you wanted, you can print them off and follow along, or if you do OneNote or something like that, you could just put them on your desktop and hand annotate them, whatever. And then afterwards, all my screen caps are saved. So I'll show you what this looks like. So this is from last semester. And this is what you'll see at the end of the day today. You'll see the day 1 recordings, you'll see the screenshots from today, and you'll have access to the actual recording link. So if you just click on that link or a link that looks similar to that, that will take you to YouTube. And it's a private link. It's not something people can watch just with a Google search or whatever, but you can grab this and you can watch the recording. So you can see last time we went an hour and 10 minutes. Or the screenshots, just same thing. You click on the screenshots and it brings up the screenshot. So this is from day 1 last semester, and it's just what we're just doing right now. Okay. Any questions about that? We'll come back later on and I'll give you the quick rundown of the other stuff that's online there, but just so you can see that the recordings and screen caps are available. Some people still like to take a lot of notes, and some people say, no, I'll refer to the notes later on. Whatever happens to work for you, that works for you. Okay. So some dates. I actually am going to change one thing on here. So if you're taking this to heart right now, I have to chat with somebody and get a set of dates over here moved. These will adjust to make this work better with most people's schedules. Right now, it's going to be a little bit crowded over here. So don't sweat that right now if you're using this to build your schedule. But all this stuff up until January 8th, that's all good and true, so you could build your schedule out if need be. This stuff is all going to be accurate. Okay, so you can build your schedule out right now if you need to do so, and it's useful to do that. It's one of the ways you can stay on top of the course. You'll note the workload is relatively light over Christmas. Do we know, is there somebody on who knows? I can check in a second here what time that training is. Just bear with me for 1 minute here. It's a 9 a.m. Alberta start, Olu.
Microsoft training?
The Microsoft training is a 9 a.m. Alberta start. And it's a 2-hour session. Okay, sorry, I think there was a, yeah, so that's why I give Alberta's time, right? Olu, aren't you in Manitoba? Sorry, I'm confused, Olu. You're in Saskatchewan. I can never remember, sorry, Olu. I should remember that by now. Yeah, that'll be 10 a.m. your time. Okay, sorry, somebody's off mute. Is there a question?
It's Pauline. Yes, I'm in Ontario.
Yeah.
9 a.m.
Oh, sorry, Pauline, you cut out as you asked your question.
No, I'm saying I'm on the optional training for Microsoft. So is it 9 a.m. my time, Ontario?
It'll be 11 a.m. Ontario time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both dates are 11 a.m.
Both days are 11 a.m. Both days are 2 hours. Yeah. And yeah, there'll be an email goes out to everybody. Krista, Kelly normally sends an email out this afternoon, and it will go over what's taught in the class and the timings and scheduling. Okay. I'll talk a little bit more about Excel training. I have a slide for that a little bit later on. For the Excel, because it's a one-off class, Krista, it's a different instructor for that class. So it's only one block for that one. It's an optional class, so not everybody attends it. It's not like this where we have an all attend, right? That Excel is entirely an optional thing. It has an extra cost. It's not at all mandatory. It's a some people want it, some people don't. Okay. Yeah, those are the dates, Tammy. That is correct, December 12 and 19. Okay. And like I said, I'll talk about Excel training a little bit more in a couple slides. We'll go over that. All right. That really is optional. She really is, Olu, yeah. All right. Yeah, I think we just recognized her. So what are we working towards here? Well, we're shooting for a financial plan. I like it, Tammy. A financial plan that covers everything covered in the Financial Planning Standards Council competency profile. There is a rough example of this, and I'll show you where to grab that in a few minutes. Generally, finished products are around 35 to 50 pages, sometimes a little bit longer. I don't see them go much shorter than that. It's not a formatting exercise. I don't care about how you interact with Word. I just need to see legible work, okay? So I don't really care about formatting. It's not a big deal. There are times when I can help with formatting if I see something that, sometimes I see people cram an Excel document into a really small size or something like that, and I'll generally just show you how to format that. But that's not the point here. The point is not to produce a pretty finished product. The point is to produce a financial plan that meets the standards described in the Financial Planning Standards Council competency profile. And there is some other coursework other than the financial plan, but the financial plan is by far the bulk of the coursework. And really, when you're done the financial plan, everything else is relatively straightforward. Okay. There are some other chunks that I enjoy and that I think are valuable, but as far as the actual workload goes, the financial plan is far and away the biggest chunk. All right. Now, one of the things that people sometimes have as a concern with this is people say, well, really, this is way more financial plan than I would do in a normal client engagement. And I kind of agree with that. Okay, I think it's a valid concern, and it's one that you should be thinking about here, because practically, you're going to end up putting at least 100 hours into this financial plan. You could not make a living like that, could you? If every client had 100 hours committed to their financial plan. So this is where what I want you to think about here is that we're not doing a financial plan. We're going through the financial planning process with a client, And really what I would argue you're doing here is you're sort of emulating about 3 years of work, kind of cramming it into 3 months or 4 months, however you want to look at it. Okay. Think about it that way. This is all the sort of financial planning stuff you would go through in an extended client engagement. Is that fair? And I think if you look at it like that, it becomes a little bit more of a realistic exercise. I think, sure, you do the plan, Tammy, and actually, in this particular case, Catherine actually has cash. Catherine has money, the kind of money that probably would attract you as a client, or sorry, attract her as a client. But I still think that 100 hours would be an awful lot of work for Catherine, or whatever the case is. So really think about this as sort of a 3-year engagement crammed into 3 months. Now, we can drag the course out over 3 years if you want, but I don't think anybody wants that. All right, that's all good? So I know sometimes people have a sort of realism concern, but I think that that's how you bypass that realism concern. You think about this as not a 3 month, but a 3-year exercise. Okay, we'll pop over and have a look at some of these resources momentarily, the competency profile, the case study, some stuff available on my website for download. We'll talk about instructor feedback in a minute, and I have a comment about group work. In fact, I'll talk about this right now. So group work is permitted, it's okay, but so it's okay to run an idea by somebody, and also to ask for input or something like that. Maybe you even coordinate efforts on how to do a certain exercise in Excel or that kind of thing, but each person must submit their own work. Okay, that is 100% required. If you submit something and it looks very, very close to something somebody else has submitted, that's going to lead to some further questioning. If it turns out that 2 people submit the same thing, the problem I have there is I'm under an obligation to report those folks to the Financial Planning Standards Council. We want to avoid that, so do your own work, and this includes pulling text straight from the sample plan. Okay, so I want to be very clear on this point. There is a sample financial plan available, not for Catherine Parker, for a completely different client. If you pull the language straight from that sample plan and use that in your own plan, that is not your work. That is my work. Does that make sense? Are we clear on that point? Tammy's clear on that point. All right. Okay. I don't mind if you use the headings. The headings are the same for everybody, but the text has to be your own work. That's all right, Tammy. All right. I'll just assume they're getting it. Okay. So let's pop over to the internet and we'll look at this stuff in a little bit more detail now. Okay, so I showed you how to log in earlier. There are some resources here I already showed. Oh, if you have questions, you can post questions here in the discussion forum. Okay, and if you do, it's just like a normal forum on any sort of chat machine, like a conversation on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. Yeah, I can go back to that, Pauline, no problem. So I'll log myself out so you can see right from scratch. So So this is the URL to log in. And then there's the login, top right corner here, log in. And your login will be your email address. And your password will be happy $2010 unless you've changed it. But that's the default password for everybody. So you'll just log in. And then once you're in, you should see something like this with a few courses listed here. The course you're looking for in particular is Capstone Winter 2018. That's the current semester. And then you're in. That's all you need. Okay. And it is a good idea to try logging in this morning, even right this second, to make sure that you can log in. Yeah, no worries, Pauline. All right. So you've got the discussion forum, and then course resources. So from the top down, and I generally prefer working sort of through the middle navigation bar. There is this left-hand navigation bar. It's a little harder to use. So there are some things here. There is the course text. This is actually, for lack of a better term, the textbook for the course. Most of what's in the textbook I actually cover off on this morning's call, but you could actually grab the textbook and read it. Everything is available in a Word document and a PDF document, just to give people sort of maximum opportunity to be able to use those documents. The reason I have some of it in a Word document is if there are chunks you want to pull out of it, I have no problem with that. That's perfectly fine. Just represent your work as your own, and if it's my stuff, just make sure you indicate that it's my stuff, okay? There is a template here for drafting the plan. Now, I have a little bit of a problem here that I'll talk about in a moment, but the competency profile just got changed. So this document is, everything you need right now is adherent to the competency profile. So if you grab this and you're just working through collection, which I'll talk about later on, the collection stuff in here all matches what's in the competency profile. I'm working towards getting this thing adjusted so the whole thing matches the new competency profile. That's not quite ready, but that's not a concern for you. I will let you know when it's all ready. You just need the collection stuff right now, okay? And there is a sample version of what the financial plan would look like here, so you can have a look at it if you're kind of curious what a completed product might look like. But it's just a completed product. It is not the ultimate financial plan or whatever the case is. It is a financial plan based on a case study. I expect everybody produces some slightly different work. There is a little bit of creativity that goes into this. Different people will approach problems differently. I expect that, I anticipate that you should actually have some of your own personal touch in your financial plans, okay? There is a fairly busy Excel document here. If you want to see sort of what's expected of you in terms of Excel, if you want to see if your Excel knowledge is up to the standard, you could grab this and have a look at it. Again, you'll end up building out your own Excel. Okay, then you've got a couple more resources down here. When it comes time to do the most difficult, what is for most people the most difficult part of the course, that is the multi-year cash flow statement in Excel. I have a whole busload of YouTube here. I got 5.5 hours of videos to cover off how to do that. So when I talk about Excel in this course, there are at least 3 different kind of ample chunks of instruction available. This is one of them, is the YouTube videos, and I actually do an Excel spreadsheet that looks like the kind of Excel spreadsheet you'd be doing this course, so you can walk through it step by step and build out your own Excel spreadsheet. Some shorter Excel video or YouTube videos here to cover off something you'll deal with later on. And well, there it is, my link to the competency profile. I just want to make sure that's the right one. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so that's the link to the competency profile, which I have open on another tab. We'll have a look at that in a second. Okay, And then as mentioned, class recordings and files are here. So really that's all that you need in terms of sort of course files. All right. This is the competency profile. This is going to be part of your homework, both for this week and perpetually. This is the document that the Financial Planning Standards Council, which is the folks that own the CFP designation in Canada, this is the document they produce to describe what the financial plan and the financial planning process look like. So what we're focused on here, this first chunk is all good. It's all introduction, talks about sort of the theory that goes into all of this. It's all well and good, but it's not what we're primarily concerned with. What we're primarily concerned with starts right here on page 10 of this document, the fundamental financial planning practices, okay? And in fact, the very first thing we're going to do, 1.001, identify clients' objectives. This comes directly out of the competency profile. So every bit of homework that I assign, I will say it attaches to this section of the competency profile. So for example, today is 1.001 of the competency profile. Next time we're together, we'll be doing in financial management really 1.101 to 1.103 of the competency profile, these chunks right here. Okay, so everything will attach there, and for this reason, because this is going to be your sort of guide or your map or whatever you want to call it for the course, you should be giving this a read at least a couple of times as part of this week's homework, or as part of the homework coming out of this class. So even if you don't have your case study yet, this is something you can do to get yourself rolling. Okay. Any questions at all about those set of resources? And that competency profile, by the way, is brand new. The last version of it went out of circulation about a month ago, and now there's that version available. About page 35, Tracy. Yeah, I'm working on them as we speak, Colleen. I guess not technically as we speak, but yes, absolutely. You're talking about in the sample plan, Colleen? Yeah, 100%, yeah. And in fact, there's some stuff in there that I'm excited to see, some stuff that I've been wanting to put into a financial plan that now I get to put into the financial plan template and get you to use. Okay. The changes to it, in my opinion, are for the better. I think FPSC has made a good set of changes to the competency profile. You won't get to see that firsthand unless you compare versions, which I could arrange if you wanted to. But yeah, there's some good stuff in there now that was missing, in my opinion, before. Okay. Yeah, and that'll be ready well in time for you. I will beat you to analysis. No worries there, Colleen. All right. Now, some people come to the course and say, well, I'm not really excited to learn Excel. I don't want to learn Excel. I know my financial planning software very well. And I'm not saying you can't use your financial planning software. You could get through the whole course just using Excel. I've put about now 400 or so students through a Capstone course, and I have had 2 students use financial planning software, so it can be done. I've had many other students who tried to use financial planning software from the start and could not get it to work for them to get to the standard that's required as per the competency profile. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're good enough with the financial planning software to be able to do this, but if you are, great. I think it's obvious then, recommend Excel, but I'm not saying you can't use your financial planning software. Are we all clear there? I do think there are benefits to learning Excel. people who learn Excel, if you've never done it before, learning Excel develops out a whole bunch of other skill sets as well. It'll actually make your financial math better. It will help you to better see the relationships between numbers. You'll have a better understanding of concepts like inflation and rates of return as mathematical concepts. You'll understand interest better. Okay, you'll understand how debt payment schedules work better. There are real advantages to learning Excel. And I find this a lot of students who do this, especially students who had pain with Excel in this course, will come back to me a year or 2 years later when I run into them at some event and they'll say, hey, I can't believe I actually am using Excel. All right, it's a useful skill. It's one of these things that people come out of business school or whatever the case is, proficient in Excel, and it does mean something. It's a useful skill. Now, is there anybody right now who is actually leaning towards using financial planning software? And fine, I don't want to sound critical of that decision. Like I said, it can work. Tons of examples, Mike. Yeah, so there's the Excel document that I showed already, where I showed you can actually poke that thing or poke around in that document and see what the sort of finished product would look like in terms of Excel. There's the 5.5 hours of pre-recorded instruction that I've already done. There's the 2 days of Excel instruction, and plus in these courses, in these calls, I often will do some Excel right at the tail end of each day. In fact, I can show you that. So see, I do a little bit of Excel here and there. Oh, there's a little bit more than that. Doesn't reflect well on here, but yes. Yeah, I'm okay with that too, Colleen. Yeah. And I find sometimes the financial planning software has particular elements to it that you're comfortable with and that you find present a clear picture of something for a client. I think if this is the Colleen, I think it is, Colleen, you're at IG, right? And I know a lot of IG folks like to pull the efficient frontier stuff out of the IG financial planning software, and that's fine. Yeah. Sorry then, Colleen, I apologize. All right. You might still want to pull some efficient frontier stuff, I don't know. But that would be an example of something that I see people sometimes use out of their own financial planning software. Yeah. Okay. Any other sort of, Mike, I hope I answered your question. Any other, Colleen, I'm sure I answered your question. Any other financial planning software / Excel questions? Yes, I by no means want you to feel abandoned with respect to this whole Excel thing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how the course actually works. What are you going to be sending in? What kind of feedback are you going to get? How does the actual sort of course run? So what'll happen here is you'll have an instructor assigned. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. You'll send that work to your instructor via email. So you just put together an email now. I've had a couple of students here and there who have preferred to use I had one student who shared with via Google Docs, and I'm okay with that. I had another student who did Dropbox. I find Dropbox a little clunky, but we can use it if necessary. So if you have some other method you prefer to use, just firm it up with your instructor first. But honestly, email generally works well. The sort of amount of interaction here generally lends itself well to email. You would include your work as a Word attachment. Does anybody not have access to Microsoft Word? If you don't have access to Microsoft Word, I'm pretty sure still I can get you a student package for relatively inexpensive or maybe even free. Okay, If you need help with Excel, it's generally not helpful just to send me your Excel document and say, I don't know what I'm doing. What instead you have to do is say, Jason, or whoever your instructor is, I don't know how to get cell C6 on a certain page to cooperate. That's the better way to get help with Excel. More specific questions are necessary to get the sort of help people need. Okay, and then what will happen, I'll show you this on the next couple of pages. The instructor will use the review comments function to provide feedback. You read those comments, you address them, and resubmit. There's no actual grading. I know that if you read the sort of course book, it talks about grades. There's no actual grading of anything. It is all either pass, fail, okay? And there are no surprises here. All that has to happen is you send in your work, your instructor gives comments or gives feedback, you address that feedback or address those comments. The instructor says, oh yeah, that's good, that meets the standard, and then the comment or feedback will go away, or the instructor says, no, I don't think you quite got it yet. Have you considered this? Or I think you missed this point, or some version of that, and maybe we still have to work towards getting that comment or feedback improved. But in the end, there are no surprises. There is not a surprise. The only way there would be a surprise in this course is if you are submitting work right at the very tail end, right at the deadline, and I do everything I possibly can to discourage that, okay? So if you do the course the way it's intended to be done, you will sort of work gradually over the next 3 or so months towards the completion of a financial plan. And at the end of that time, you will know that you've got a financial plan that meets the standard. That's good. And there's not going to be some process at the end where suddenly you find out that all this work you just did wasn't valid. All right. No, the grading and feedback are really the same thing, Daryl. There's not two different processes there. Feedback and grading are the same thing. Okay, so you submit your assignments. It's about 10 submissions, Corey. It might be as many as 14 or 15 because sometimes people like to submit sort of smaller chunks or sort of interim work where you say to your grader, I just want you to have a look at this chunk. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, or some version of that. So it'll be somewhere between 10 and maybe as many as 15 submissions. Okay, about one a week. All right, Daryl, does my comment make sense there? Are you with me? So it's not like you're shooting for perfection each, although obviously you want to be trying to do your work well, but you're not sort of going to fail if it's not perfect when you submit it at the deadline, if that makes sense. This will make more sense in a moment too. I'll show you how this works. Okay, so here's what's happened. This is obviously not a real financial planning exercise. I just put something together to show you how this will work in practice. So this is what the week 1 homework is. The week 1 homework is to actually identify objectives for the client. Okay, so this student puts this together and sends this to their grader at or near the deadline. Okay, earlier is fine. There's no harm in sending it in earlier. Okay, and so this is sent as a Word document attached to an email. The grader opens it up, reads it, and says, okay, do I agree with what's here? Has the student sort of accomplished the goals? And the grader might say, all right, using the review comments function in Word, which is generally, it's in the review tab, and there's the comments tab underneath that. The grader uses comments and says, hang on a second here, student. I think that you've got this in the wrong place. This is in fact not a financial management objective, but a risk management objective. Okay. And sometimes this will be a question. It doesn't always have to be a straight up comment. Sometimes it will be, and I might do this differently. Now in this case, this is obvious, but if I wasn't sure, the question might be, Why is this in financial management? And then the student would give an answer, possibly. So the student might not move it, but the student might answer with a valid explanation. Okay, and the grader might say, oh, that's good, I never considered that, and move on. Or the grader might just be looking for the student to provide more detail over here. The answer to a problem is not always just to move something or delete something. Sometimes the answer is to have a bigger discussion about that particular concept. Okay. Any questions there? All right, and then the student would come back. Let's say that the student just says, yeah, I see the point here. And the student comes back and resubmits this. And the resubmission, we show financial management, investment planning. We didn't have risk management in there before. The student adds risk management and says that's now a risk management objective. The grader says, hey, good to go, no problem. And this is probably included in the week 2 homework. This probably really doesn't show up until the week 2 homework. So the adjustments from week 1 would normally show up in the week 2 homework. You could do them earlier if you wanted to, but this keeps the sort of workflow relatively manageable. Okay. You're going to really do one Word document, okay? So you just keep sending the same Word document and you're going to build it out. So it'll start off at one little section like this. And by the time you're done, you'll have that 35, 40, 45, 50 page Word document that I had talked about before. Please do make a habit of saving and keeping backup versions of documents. Okay. It hasn't happened so much lately, but I know the first couple of years I was teaching this class, especially before Word got so good at sort of version control, it would happen occasionally. The student would do a whole day or 2 days of work and would lose all of that work. I will still tell you that happens occasionally where somebody gets kind of clever about how they're doing their work. And an example of this would be, I see sometimes students who are flipping back and forth between machines where they're using their office desktop and then they're using their Mac at home, and they're trying to do version control between the 2 different computers. That's the place where I sometimes see lost work happen still. So if you're doing this kind of thing, make sure you have some system in place to not lose a whole bunch of work, okay? All right, does this all make sense? Are we okay with this process? Submit work, get feedback, submit the work with the feedback addressed. Yeah, I'm okay with Google Docs, Russ, although I don't know who your grader is, Russ. Talk to your grader about it. I think I'm your grader. The preference is Word. And today you can get Google Docs to save as a doc file, as a Word file. If you're going to do this, just let me know. 99% sure I'm your grader. I don't have you on my list, Russ. Okay, I've got that in a second. That's coming, Tammy. Next slide. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm not sure why you're not on my list, Russ, but we'll get to that. All right. So if you don't see yourself on this list, then you're probably my student. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, I just couldn't see you. Oh, there you are. Yeah, I was looking for Russ. There we go, Russell. Good stuff. That makes sense. Okay. So what'll happen, and the graders are all CFP or, oh, I missed one here. Lori, I don't have your students on here. And you do have students. Sorry, Laurie, I missed you. Okay. There's a group of students that are with Laurie as well. Actually, I can tell you who those are right now. Just bear with me for 1 second. I failed my alphabet test this morning, Laurie. That's what happened there. There, those are Laurie's folks. Okay. I will send an email, hopefully today, should be today, to everybody. So what'll happen is I'll send an email to Adam. I'll say, Adam, here are your 5 students. I'll send an email to the 5 students and I'll say, here's Adam. Yeah, so that'll all be sorted out. Olu, you'll have, I can't remember who you've got, Olu, but you will have your graders. Oh, there you are, Val. You'll have Val's contact information today, Olu. Okay. All right. And if you don't see yourself on this list, then you should see yourself on the next page. These would be mine. And it's not uncommon, and don't take this the wrong way, folks. If I have somebody who is doing well, somebody who's meeting all the deadlines and so forth, if I have a student like that, and then there's somebody over here on one of these lists who's a little bit lagging for whatever reason, then we typically will switch those out. I generally keep the students who are lagging a little bit and pass on the students who are staying on schedule to these folks over here. There's my contact information, but I will send an email to all my students as well. But I'm happy to give out my email address. You're always welcome to send me an email. Anybody's welcome to send me an email. Okay. So as mentioned, I'll send out an email today with everybody's email address. Okay, non-case study portions. So don't sweat those too much right now. There's some other work that'll be done way down the road that's not specifically related to the Catherine Parker case study. Okay, we'll get that later on. Don't sweat it. All right, I already showed you the competency profile once. I want to show you a couple of things here. So it's broken down into 3 portions, and I think, Colleen, was it your question already? You asked about collection, analysis, and recommendations, didn't you? Or sorry, yeah, collection, analysis, recommendations. And that's exactly what you see here. So Colleen's clearly paying some attention. And this is where, yeah, collection. This is what we're really working on for the month of December and a little bit into January. Analysis will be January and a little bit into February. Recommendation will be February, March. That's about how that's going to break down. Analysis is where the bulk of the work happens. That's where students tend to have the most troubles, is in the analysis portions, and I'll talk more about why that is later on. Yeah, sorry, Navdeep, you're on private chat there. Navdeep's question is about how long the recordings are available for. They're never going to go away, Navdeep, at least not in any sort of reasonable time frame. Okay, technically students who went through in the semesters 3 years ago or 4 years ago still have access to their stuff. So short of YouTube or something like that making substantive changes to its business model, that stuff remains available. And I still have the raw recordings even then. Okay, so what's collection? Collection, what we're starting off with, this is what is true right now or what will be true on the current path. Analysis, this is where we say, if you do this, then this will happen, or here are some things you could consider in order to make something happen. And recommendation is, this is what you should do. And really, the point of the course, and I think where students tend to, especially the students that I see, students who tend to come from an industry background, this tends to be the weak spot for students. We tend to approach these problems with a lot of bias or preconceived notions, and I want to work towards eliminating that bias or preconceived notions to give everybody the opportunity to step back and solve problems based on a detailed analysis rather than based on a preconceived approach to handling a particular problem. And sometimes those preconceived approaches are fine, but I want to show that I hold a preconceived approach and it makes sense because, okay, fine. But sometimes we have a preconceived notion and it's not the right thing. Okay, so we're going to work towards actually getting to the right solution via a good analysis. All right, and I'll show you quickly what that looks like in that document. Okay, so this is, we'll skip down to, let's go to investment planning. Okay, so there are 6, what they now call areas of the financial planning process. Investment planning is one such area. This will be a big focus for Catherine Parker, actually. We start with collection. Okay, so collection is where we gather all the information about the client. There are 2 kinds of information we're going to gather. Quantitative information, those would be facts and figures. And qualitative information, that's description of the client. Okay, and a lot of people say, well, hang on a second here. These are not facts and figures. I'm really doing some analysis here. I agree that you're going to do some analysis. You're going to analyze some of what you know about Catherine in order to determine what her experience, attitudes, biases, and objectives are. Okay. We agree with that. But that's really still just describing her. That is her qualitative information. And this is why I need you to give the competency profile a couple of reads. Okay, so we get the handle on that. So now we know who the client is. Now we're able to engage in some analysis to actually roll into what does the client need to do? What are some things they can do to get where they need to be? What could we possibly rearrange or change? Or what should we continue to be doing in terms of this person's financial plan? So this is all the analysis steps that we're going to take as part of the investment planning process. We're going to hammer out some possible strategies. Why do we like these strategies? Why do we dislike them? And we're going to prioritize their needs. And then, and this should be a relatively small portion of the plan, we say, all right, I've done a lot of analysis now. Client, here's what makes sense for you to do. Easy, and every area is like that. So insurance, same thing. Collection, quantitative. Collection, qualitative. Analysis, assessment. And then analysis, strategies. And then recommendation. Okay, so it just keeps going like that. Tracy, you had asked before about the length of this portion of the document. It takes you to page 36, sorry. Okay, that's good. That's the sort of key chunk that you need there. You should read the whole thing, the whole competency profile. It goes through a little bit of how it's formed and what it means and how it's intended to be used, but really that's the document. Okay. So the thing that I said, now I've got one more thing I'm going to go over. I realized I skipped over somebody's question. So I have one more question I'll answer. Absolutely, Clara, yeah. I've given you the link. So it is a PDF document, and your web browser will have some way to pull a PDF off of a website, and you could just save it to your desktop or whatever the case is. Yeah. Okay. So here's your homework. This will always be the last slide. First thing, you're going to read the case study, become familiar with the case study, okay? I guess I say these are your clients, but this is your client. Catherine is your client for the next 3 months. You're going to read the competency profile at least twice. Download that Word template from Moodle so you have an idea of what sort of headings to use, what the document will actually look like. And send to your grader by the 15th of December, which is our next class, a list of Sam and Sarah there. I apologize, I didn't adjust that. That should say Catherine. A list of objectives for Catherine, broken down by financial planning objective. Sorry about that. Okay. And a start of your list of assumptions. So an assumption would be anything that we don't know about the client. Known facts are not assumptions. I don't need a list of known facts. Okay, so for example, Catherine's investment holdings are not an assumption. Inflation is an assumption. Assumed mortality is an assumption. Those are assumptions, things we don't know, things we can't know, but we have to have available in order to use in the case study. All right. Now, when it does come time for assumptions, there is a document you can use. Some of you are familiar with it. FPSC produces a document called the Projection Assumption Guidelines. And it lists out a bunch of sort of reasonable assumptions that can be made. I'll show you where to grab it in a second. And it covers off things like mortality and investment returns. All right. So I'll show you that document. You could just click over here. It's a little bit wonky how it comes up, but it's there. That is one place. It's not the only place to get assumptions from, but is one place you can use to get assumptions. Okay. Are there any questions then about anything we've covered? I do want to just talk about Excel for a moment longer. I can talk a little bit about the exam, Daryl. I can. Let me go through a couple more things related to the specific course. It's a good thing to be thinking about right now for sure. Okay. So what's next? You're going to do the assumptions and objectives. We're in class again on December 15th. If you're already comfortable with Excel, maybe just brush up a little bit on Excel. I will be doing some Excel in class for the next couple of classes. If you're not proficient with Excel, there's that optional tutorial we already talked about, 9 a.m. Alberta time. And you'll get an email about that from Kelly. He usually waits until I'm done this class to send that email out to everybody. It is optional. If you're very good with Excel, I don't suggest that that's going to bring a ton of value. If you are going to come to that class, my advice here is to attend if you can on a computer with 2 monitors, or maybe you have an iPad where you're watching the class and your computer where you're doing the work. Okay, or 2 monitors. I have 2 monitors set up. I know that's becoming increasingly common. Generally speaking, today's a little bit different, but generally speaking, first hour of class will be based on the homework, and the second hour of class will be a teaching topic, and that shows up on the class schedule. I'll show you that here. So for example, when we are together again next time on December 15th, we'll talk about collection analysis and recommendations in more detail. That's the sort of homework portion. We'll talk about cash flow and net worth statements. And then the teaching portion will be on creditworthiness. Okay, thanks, Laurie. And I did want to answer the question about Excel that had come up. It was a good question. And the Excel question I didn't answer yet is, what do we actually teach on that optional class? Okay, really it's about using multiple sheets, relationships between cells, time value of money using Excel. So same thing you do with your financial calculator. Things like inflation and return projections. A little bit of if and max statements, not a ton of formulas here, but if you're sort of, just to give you an idea kind of about competency with Excel, if you can do if and max statements, then you're probably okay. You do need to be able to use a financial calculator, Rebecca. One of the assignments is very financial calculator specific. And this ties into Daryl's question as well. If you can't use the financial calculator, I can't see passing the CFP exam. Okay, so if your financial calculator skills are weak, then I can show you where to brush up on those. I have some places where you can practice a little bit with the financial calculator. But yes, absolutely, the expectation is that you're using the financial calculator. All right. I recommend, Pauline, I'm a fan. If you're buying a calculator, my recommendation is the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus. There's honestly one that's better, but you can only buy it on Amazon. If you actually wanted to, you could buy the Casio 200, but nobody's going to teach you how to use it. It's not a common calculator in North America. It's the calculator, it's the standard in South Asia, but the Casio 2 Plus is the recommended, or the BA2 Plus, sorry, is the recommended calculator. Okay. If you're using another one already and you know how to use another calculator already, don't learn a new calculator. Okay. If you already know your calculator, continue using it. Okay, there you go, Corey. Okay, that's not a bad price for that calculator. Actually, I've seen it as high as $80. All right, so let me address the calculator question real quick here, Rebecca's question, and then Daryl, I'll address your question about the exam. Okay. So back to my website. Everybody will have access to a course in here. So I'm just logged in right from scratch again. Everybody will have access to a course in here called BCC CFP Core Curriculum. Some people never want to see it again, but this is the core instruction for students to get them to the level 1 exam. So a bunch of people who were on this call did level 1 with me, and they went through this material. Okay, and there's some case studies in here, some other odds and ends. You can feel free to read through this. There's videos covering various topics. So let's say you want to review Canada Pension Plan. Well, you could scroll down to Chapter 4, Government Benefits Programs. CPP is relevant for this case because Catherine's retired. And you could read Chapter 4 and read about Canada Pension Plan, or you could watch a bunch of the videos that are up here that cover off a whole bunch of topics, including Canada Pension Plan, old age security, a bunch of other odds and ends. Okay, but you specifically asked about the financial calculator. So Chapter 5 is the financial calculator, and it covers off. You could read the textbook on it. There's videos here that show you how to use the financial calculator. It's called BCC Core Curriculum, Krista. You should have access to it. The course is called BCC CFP Core Curriculum. So just from home, right, where you log in. So this is the page you get to when you log in. And then right here you should see, or hereabouts, you should see a course called CFP Core Curriculum. Yeah, I'm happy to, Scott. Yeah, okay. And so you pop down here, and there's a whole bunch of resources here. There's a practice book. There's how to use the financial calculator videos. There's all kinds of stuff in here. So if you do need to brush up on the calculator, that's a place to do it. Okay, that's good. Okay, no problem. All right, and then the other question that came up, so I'm going to take just a couple minutes here to talk about the exam. I normally talk about it in some detail at the very end of the course. Yeah, everybody has access to that, Clara. Every student who's here has access to it. Okay. Okay, or at least should. On Friday, my office told me they set everybody up. So if you don't, let me know and we can get that fixed, but everybody should have access to it. All right, so the CFP exam, which I assume many of you are planning to write in June. Okay, this exam is whatever the first Friday in June, is that right? Which I think is June 2nd. Okay, so what'll have to happen here is you have to have transcripts to FPSC June 1st. Thanks, Clara. You have to have transcripts to FPSC by the end of April then, effectively, so that basically then you have all of May, and really the whole course is built this way. The course is built to get these transcripts in plenty of time and give you time to study. Okay, and again, just a quick overview of what this exam looks like. It is a 6-hour exam. It's broken into 2 3-hour components, and each component will have the same thing. Each component will have 5 or 6 cases. The cases are about 1 page, and then about 2 to 3 questions per case. The questions are what's called constructed response, okay? And I'll show you an example of a constructed response question momentarily, but what this really means is that you're provided a template and you type in an answer, okay? And then you'll also have around 10 to 12 multiple choice questions. And these multiple choice questions tend to be high complexity, which generally means that they are math intensive questions. Okay, so that's the same morning and afternoon. You'll have, it's 2 discrete sessions. So you'll have this again in the afternoon. So you'll do this once in the morning and then in the afternoon. Okay. It's a difficult exam. Students often report running out of time on it. It's still done on the computer, Clara, that's right. So it's all computer based. You may have had people in the same room as you when you wrote your level 1 writing this exam, okay? I'm not sure what exactly you're driving at, Pauline. It is generally more difficult than the first exam, if that's what you're asking. It's generally more of an experience than the first exam, let's say. But it's not substantially more difficult. It won't blow the first exam out of the water either. And actually, I understand. I haven't spoken to anybody else on this call, I don't think. Maybe one email from somebody on this call. I know that it'll be just like the first exam, Rebecca. And I know some of you are on approved prior credentials. If you never wrote an exam with FPSC before, about 2 weeks before the exam, you'll get a note that says, here's where you're going to write. If you're in a major, well, here, I'll show you the list now. Just let me make sure here. Yeah, I think we're good there. Yeah, if this is all new to you, I'll give you a document here that you can read that will really help with this. So if you've never written an exam with FPSC before, which I know some of you won't have, go read this document. And it lists all kinds of things. It talks about how the exam is booked. It gives your deadlines, although this one is only for the current exam, right? But it's still all valid. It still gives a rough idea about all this stuff. Gives the exam centers. So these are the exam centers, Rebecca. If you're in another city, I'm not sure where you're located, Rebecca, but this is the current set of exam centers. If you have another option that works for you that's not on this list, there are ways to do that. You can pay an extra, usually around $300, $350, and they'll put the right on for you in another location. Okay. All right. Where are you, Rebecca? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about Toronto right at the tail end. I'll talk about that closer to. York region is actually generally a good exam center. Peel region is the one where I generally advise people to actually go to one of the other GTA locations to write. All right, I've not seen good experiences with whatever exam center gets used in Peel region. Okay. Any other questions? Any sort of course, Daryl, is that enough of what you're looking for the exam right now? I really think, and I know there are some of you on the call who've never written an exam with FPSC before, but I really think that document's worth a read. Okay, it's a long document, but there's lots of meat to it. It's good. It will help you. And I should have mentioned something at the beginning of the call, but a bunch of you wrote the level 1 exam on Friday. I hope that there's good news coming out of that. I honestly, at this point, just so you hear what I've heard, I think everybody I've talked to so far about the exam ran out of time, and not by a narrow margin. I hear a lot of people telling me that they didn't finish 5 to 10 questions on that exam. Yeah, there is homework for the 15th, Tracy. There absolutely is. 100% there is. Here, I'll show you again. So you can always look to the last page for the homework. Okay, this is the homework. Submit a list of the objectives, sorry, where'd that go? A list of objectives for Sam and Sarah, broken down by component, and the starting list of your assumptions. Okay, yeah, so absolutely there is homework. And if you ever have that question, Tracy, you can always log in to Moodle and have a look at the notes from today, and you'll see what the homework is. Okay, and if you want to know what your homework is for every day going forward, you can grab this document and you could put this on your calendar. At least it's accurate up to January 19th. It's going to change. I'm going to draw this out a little bit more. I'm going to draw out the January, February components to give a little bit more time there. Yeah, that's exactly what happens, Navdeep. You write your grader, whose email address you'll have later today, an email saying, hey, grader, here is my homework, and that person will email you back and say, good stuff, Navdeep, or Navdeep, this section needs some work, or you missed something, or why'd you put this here, or some version of that. Yeah, December 15th, Corey, yeah. Which, that's right there, right? Okay. Sorry, where do you see Sam and Sarah now? I got rid of Sam and Sarah on that homework page. It's Catherine now, Tammy. Yeah. I know I had Sam and Sarah mentioned on the one slide, but I did address that. So that should say Catherine. I can't change it now. I can't change it from here. All right. That's the only place where they show up though, isn't it? Or is there another place, Pauline, that I missed them? I think that's it. Okay, yeah. All right. Thanks, Pauline. Thanks, Tammy. Okay. No, I missed something, Tammy. My error, not yours. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Clara, you really have to brush up then. If you have forgotten a lot of that core content, that's a long time between exams. You're going to find that that hurts you quite a bit. Okay. Now, what'll happen as you're working through the course is you will brush up on some of that stuff. Right. That's right, Olu. You're going to go to FPSC to buy the Catherine Parker case study. That is true. Okay. There. It is closed book, Daryl. I actually don't think it would matter that much if it was open book. I prefer if it was open book. I think it would be, I think it'd be a better exam process. I have talked to FPSC about this. I just don't think that it would make any difference in terms of who passes. I think it would be more accurately representative of a real financial planning experience, except that you're under the gun for time and you just don't have time to write an open book exam well. I don't find open book exams that much better. For about 65% of exam writers typically pass, Rebecca. That you'll never know already. Just like the level 1 exam, you'll never know what the actual passing grade is. Yeah, both of those things are correct. Krista, webinar is always at the same time. And you will get an email clarification of times to match time zones. Okay, if you tell me what province you're in, probably I can tell you what time zone. BC is wacky because BC has 2 different time zones, but yeah, so it'll be an 11 a.m. start, Krista. Unless you're right out on the cusp there by Thunder Bay where the time zone is different. I know Thunder Bay is the same, but I think the time zone actually changes at International Falls, doesn't it? I don't know, all right. I've actually never done a breakdown of who passes out of Capstone students. I only do it for my exam prep students. Oh, I do actually, all right. I get that from FPSC. Yeah, it's usually, I'm usually about 2 or 3% higher than national average, but not always. I've been just on the national average a couple times. I do exam prep in May, Pauline. So the idea is to be done with this course. And there's a couple different exam prep schedules. It depends where people are and so forth. It's, yeah, I don't mind talking about that, but I'd always, and it's good to be thinking about the exam right now. It is. I just want to focus on the capstone right now. I find that this is the bigger hurdle for most people. Yeah, actually, to that point, there will be more people who start this course and don't get to the CFP exam than there will be people who get to the CFP exam and write and fail it. Okay. Yeah, that is universally true. Okay, not finishing capstone is the biggest hurdle of any hurdle along the way for the students that I deal with. Okay. All right, any other questions? I can give you those dates if you want, Pauline, I don't mind. It's not averse to giving out dates or free advertising or whatever. Just bear with me for a second here. Yeah, it's 3 days in May anyways. But it is in May. I don't like to overlap it with capstone. I want people focused on capstone. That was what I was trying to communicate, Pauline. That's good. You got my message loud and clear then. I like it. Okay. Any other questions then? Sorry, I've gone a little longer than I normally do with this call, but lots of good questions, and that's good. Oh, so Krista, I don't have a workaround for that. You can call your IT department and they can open up those links for you. I'm surprised to still see people doing this. I know some departments, some offices block YouTube altogether. Yeah, it could be your browser. Try a different browser. So I'm using Chrome, Russ, and it does work. It absolutely works on Chrome. I think that it's however Chrome is set up in your office, honestly. Oh, that's weird then. So that's your pop-up blocker on Chrome then. So you might have to open up the pop-up blocker on Chrome, however you have that set up. But no, I use Chrome all the time. I just watch me use Chrome. Oh, sorry, Stephen, is there a question there? Yeah, so that's if your company doesn't allow YouTube, then you're only going to be able to use YouTube from home. Okay. And I know some companies have that policy. Sorry, Stephen, did you have a question? Oh, I'm not sure if you're trying to ask something, but you're not coming through clear.
Okay, so can I go to other programs while I'm waiting for this to happen, or should I just, maybe I'll listen to it twice. What happened to the noise?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, go ahead, Olu. Yeah, okay. if there are no other questions, if the folks who are on the phone could stick around, Daryl and Dustin, we'll see if we can get you squared away. Scott M, and I know, and Tyler, if you could stick around for a minute, we'll try and get you so you don't have to use the phone. And other than that, I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll talk to you on the 15th then. We'll talk to a bunch of you by email in between.